Welcome to another episode of My Creek TV. I'm Tao, and today I'm going to be building a new vegetable garden bed. I'm going to use a sheet mulching technique. I've kind of combined different ideas and concepts I've heard to make these first three. I'm going to do the same thing with this fourth one. And I'm making a fourth one not just because I have the space, but so I can set up a crop rotation. And you can see the area behind me. There's a burned area, and before I was actually going to burn some brush and make some biochar, but I don't really have good access to water right now, so I couldn't put it out to make the charcoal, so it just ended up being a fire, and I know it can kill some life in the soil, but it's also depositing a bunch of minerals, especially like phosphorus and stuff like that, into that area, and I'm going to fork that around a little bit. These beds are no-till, so I will never be using a till or anything to plow the soil, turn it over. That way the soil structure, like the microorganisms, don't get damaged, and they just develop a natural soil structure. And as long as you don't walk on it or compact it, the roots actually keep constantly improving the soil. And basically the broad fork, I'm breaking it up, giving them a little head start on breaking it up. One of the reasons you don't want to till and things like and turn the soil over is it basically just releases a lot of nutrients from the soil really quickly. It's stored up nutrients, and it burns the soil life out. You burn out like a lot of carbon dioxide gets put back in the atmosphere and things like that, and your soil just generally degrades. This method, the soil will actually improve over time, and I'll keep layering mulch on top of it. Right now it's just the bare compost. But the mulch will break down and add nutrients to the soil, and I'll also be composting the waste and adding that every year as well. All right, so let's talk about when you want to do this. Okay, as you can see, it's a pretty nice day. It's beginning of April. The average last frost isn't for another couple weeks, and the soil isn't wet. You don't want to be doing it when it's really wet, but it has had a good soaking recently. So deep down in there, there's a lot of water down in there. And but the top, I'm not going to be compacting it too much, but by stepping on it, and the broad fork will break it up pretty good. So one of the times that you want to do a sheet mulching is especially when you have a lot of weeds and the ground's not that great, so there's not already a natural fertility there. And in this case, I've actually got stumps. There's actually some young cedars out here, and I cut a bunch of them down, and I'm actually just going to do it right over them, and they will eventually break down. Cedar is rot resistant, so it'll take a while, but it'll certainly speed up the process by having a bunch of like organic matter surround. The idea behind the cardboard is that you'll set it down and it just kind of smothers all of the weeds and sets them back so that they're not strong enough to eventually push through the cardboard and up through the compost. It also stops any weed seeds underneath it from germinating. Okay, these are just some of the things I'm going to use to mark out the bed. I just have a hammer to pound in these crude stakes, and then I'm going to wrap this nylon line around the stakes, and I'm going to measure it out just using a larger tape measure. So now that I've marked off the plot here, I'm going to go around it with this broad fork and break up the soil. Okay, so basically I'm moving backwards with the broad fork. I'm going to pull it out and I move back about 6 inches to a foot or so and push it in. You know, occasionally I hit a root and it makes it a little bit harder because there's roots, stumps around here. And then I rock it back and forth and then pull it out and repeat. And I'm moving backwards so that I'm not recompressing the soil, that I'm just the subsoil that I'm breaking up as I go. Peeling tape off of the boxes is probably the least gratifying of all of the tasks involved in doing a sheet mulched bed. And it's important to try to find boxes with as little tape as possible on them, and also to find the biggest boxes possible because you get more space for the amount of tape, basically. There's fewer cracks in between the pieces of cardboard, and you have to overlap each piece, so the bigger the pieces, the less overlap you have altogether. And good places to find them, find boxes. Big boxes are gonna be like appliance stores, like they'll have, sometimes they'll have the refrigerator boxes and things like that. Those are great. I usually don't have that much luck. I usually find a couple boxes, but I usually end up with a lot more, like this size or so. And behind a lot of like retail stores, they'll have boxes in the dumpster. You want to go to smaller ones though. Places like Walmart have like compactors, and they've compacted into these big blocks. But yeah, that's pretty much the deal on boxes, and pretty much any place will give them to you. And I do take them out of the recycle bins sometimes because, well, they're all in one place, and I figure reusing something's better than recycling it anyway. I mean, it goes reduce, reuse, recycle, right? But it's probably better to get them out of dumpsters, regular dumpsters, so you can keep them out of landfills. So now that I've broad forked the plot, typically you'd want to soak the ground really well and charge it up, because once you put the cardboard down, it's not going to be getting any water for a while, or not much anyway. I'm not going to do that for a couple reasons. I don't actually have a lot of water available to me right now. And the second reason is the ground is pretty well charged with water ever since the snow melted. So I'm gonna just go with what I've got. And it took me quite a while to get all the tape off the boxes, but it's ready to go now, and I'm gonna put all that down, and I'm gonna overlap the cardboard so that there's not any gaps, and try to overlap it as much as possible. Usually want to do at least a couple inches. So that's the next step. And so I'm offsetting the pieces so that the gaps don't line up and weeds can get through them. Okay, so now that I've laid down all of the cardboard and patched up all the little holes and stuff, I'm just going to start putting the compost down on top of it. And you want to do this so when it's not a windy day, otherwise the boxes will be blowing all over the place. This is a compost that I got from the landfill in Colombia, and it was $12 for all of this. And I'm pretty sure it's mainly just broken down yard waste. Every now and then I find like little bits of plastic and stuff like that in it. And I'm not really sure about the quality, although I have these two soil tester spikes. They both test pH, and one of them tests the fertility. I'm not sure exactly what it's measuring. And I'm not even sure if the green one works, the one that just tests pH. It doesn't have a battery or anything in it. And it just naturally sits at neutral at 7. And basically, since I've stuck it in there, it's sitting at 7. The other soil tester actually the dial actually moves, so you have a little more faith in it. It puts the pH around 6.3, 6.4, which is just about perfect for garden soil. And when I flip it over to the fertilizer analysis mode, it leaps up and shows the fertility in the middle, in the ideal range, right in the middle of the ideal range. So I'm hoping it's pretty good stuff. It smells good, and you know, the quality of it's pretty nice. It's really dark and crumbly, so I expect good things out of it. Okay, so I've finished putting the compost down on top of the cardboard. Made keyhole patterns just like the other 3 beds, and I basically just lined them up with the other beds, and I didn't measure or anything like that. I just kind of made sure that I was able to reach most of the areas in the bed, which, I mean, that's the basic idea of a keyhole pattern. The next step is going to be putting mulch around the outside of the bed on top of this cardboard out here on the edge, and in the keyholes. And then I'm going to put just straw mulch on this one. This one's going to be potatoes and beans this year, so I'm going to use some straw for that.